que vamos teniendo. Entonces, bueno, uno de los ejemplos que hemos tenido es en el Plan Nacional de Cambio Climático de Costa Rica, en el Plan Nacional, en el componente de adaptación. Ya que teníamos las experiencias en el campo, hemos sido capaces de incluir un resultado trabajando conjuntamente con el gobierno para mejorar la resiliencia de aquellos ecosistemas que son vulnerables. Casualmente, y obviamente trabajamos ahí, una de las zonas más vulnerables del país son las zonas fronterizas. Entonces, eso quedó plasmado de esa manera, normalmente en los planes nacionales de cambio climático.
Gentlemen would like to.
Thanks. I think there was only one question that directly went in my direction. If anyone is systematically monitoring the state of EBA working, the short answer to that question, you all know, is no. Now, I would not say that's a huge amount of EBA, first of all. We have very large amounts of money that are being made available in fast-track funding for adaptation. If we neglected to include the EBA as a part of all those actions, we would be missing a great opportunity. So the lack of this monitoring should not stop us, just as I mentioned in my talk, should not stop you from planting a tree to develop to offset the carbon, just because you can monitor that tree for the next 50 years. This said, I strongly agree that it behooves us to find out which ones of our actions are most efficient, which ones are most efficacious, which ones are perhaps benefiting some segments of society, not others, or there are all kinds of benefiting in the short term and maybe counterproductive in the longer term. So UNEP would like to develop such a program. We're in very early discussions with the GPF to try and put in place a large-scale, long-term research and monitoring effort. We would be very interested to work with the academic community on that, both the scientific community through the ProVia group that I mentioned, and also the economic community. There's a big question about whether EBA works and whether it's cost effective.
Just a quick response to Jeff's observation about the evidence-based sufficient data. From our perspective, I hope I'm speaking on Media and Bruno. As you know, Jeff, you've been involved with CG. CCOR are about to establish with some of our CG partners a series of sensible landscapes. And the idea of this particular preliminary privilege was to generate knowledge gaps, looking at the 6 pillars, if you like, of the ecosystem based assessments, and transferring that into on-the-ground research in each of these sensible landscapes. And the idea is we have 6 sensible landscapes, 2 in each of the major continents, and that's going to be expanded at some point in the future. So essentially, this is going to be long-term, longitudinal data collection sets focusing on a whole series of research interests, but particularly in ecosystem-based adaptation as well. So it's transferring the literature to the practical as well.
Yeah, just very quickly, it's obviously a very good question. You really tell me these guys their answers to it. I'm not doing anything just because you don't have the evidence, but when they all go about doing these projects, it is another reason why functional evaluation actually setting those projects up to really robustly get at what we're actually trying to do, how we're connecting the actions that we're taking to long-term goals, not simply setting heads like in the forest, and it's going to save these people downstream. That's what we're going to come to. One of the things, it's quite interesting that we're setting our bar, it's a good thing, we're setting our bar in terms of evidence actually quite high. If you look at most of the developing world, if they build simple, the last thing they do is an environmental impact assessment, and really any kind of assessment to see whether or not it's actually going to benefit the people behind it, which is why they often fail and want to get all sorts of malinterpretation. So it's not a reason for us to not do and not gather the evidence and not try and understand the EBA. It's quite interesting.
Okay, now I've got 2 things to do. I want to do this slightly together. First of all, I'm going to give these guys and girls 1 minute to what are the key gaps from your perspectives with respect to EBA in terms of science, policy, tools, economics and practice. I'm going to give you 1 minute just to say what the key gaps are. Not a major discourse on each gap. Now, while they're thinking about that, I want you lot to get out your pens and write down very briefly what you think some of the key actions are that we require to strengthen the case for EBA, Ecosystem Based Adaptation. And just write down in brief, very short. And I'm going to come around at random, and I'll pick certain people out at random, and others can send their comments back to Angela here. And we'll make sure you have her email address. Okay, so I'm putting in the panel here to give you a 1 minute synopsis of the key challenges. Who wants to start? 1 minute from now.
Bueno, un minuto y me dejé 2 preguntas de responder que me quedan. Después voy a pedir, no sé si otro minuto o las discutimos fuera. Bueno, en cuanto al aspecto de ciencia política e implementación, yo creo que uno de los puntos que nosotros hemos visto como un vacío es el vínculo que se hace entre los datos que tenemos de clima y obviamente los datos que tenemos hidrológicos. Esto a veces nos genera más incertidumbre aún cuando se quiere actuar. Y añadiría una cosa, cómo los efectos del cambio climático afectan los medios de vida, porque al final justamente estos medios de vida son cruciales para mantener la salud y la integridad de los ecosistemas. En cuanto a políticas, yo creo que uno de los vacíos que hay es el trabajo a nivel local y cómo realmente diseñar herramientas, instrumentos que funcionen no solamente a nivel nacional, sino cómo bajar esos instrumentos a nivel local. Y yo creo que en un vacío que tenemos en la implementación tiene que ver, lo comparto también con el resto, con el tema del monitoreo. Que efectivamente no nos tiene que parar para llegar a la acción. Eso.
I'll stop Martha. David, your 1 minute.
So what areas again? Science, policy, and implementation?
Science, policy, tools, economics, and practice.
So science...
You don't have to...
Not more, no. Science would have to be assuming is the biophysical potential, so we understanding from a quantitative basis just how there are ecosystems, there are adaptation services actually can do it, actually benefiting by how much. From an implementation perspective, again, I agree entirely that it's to a very large degree it's about monitoring and evaluation, because that starts when you begin your project, when you set that project up to you. If you don't set that right, if you don't have quantified goals that you're trying to reach, then you're going to be struggling with us in terms of implementation. And tools, yes. Okay, so my last one on the just tools is yes, trying to incorporate the uncertainty into this kind of these kind of approaches, because one thing we don't generally do in any impact assessment is get at the tail end of some of these distributions of climate change. Extreme impacts, if you like. So we can walk around at 2 degrees, maybe 3 degrees, from area, for example, 4 degrees, and see what that might look like. We need to build that into at least as a scenario into operation.
Yeah, thank you, David. Keith, your 1 minute. Don't duplicate.
Yeah, I'll take one that hasn't already been tabled, although I agree with the previous speakers. I will say it's urban areas, specifically for EBA. This is where the majority of poor, vulnerable people live. So it's a gap in that sense, and it's also a gap, at least for UNEP, in the sense that all of our work has been targeted at the national level, national points of contact, national programs of adaptation, whereas we're going to have to very much better integrate municipal level decision makers and municipal funding to target these urban areas.
Thank you. Keith. Eric? 1 minute.
I guess from the presentation I talked a little bit about local to regional adaptation continuum. And as we move towards regional, designs become somewhat less exact and much more disputed, and I think specifically about the forest and flood debate, and also issues related to mangroves and coastal management. And I think that Amelia was absolutely right, our last statement here, that we have to take a lot of science, but without taking into account the climate change adaptation whole agenda, if you like. And so we need to use that lens to integrate much more into a greater science portfolio.
Okay, thank you very much for your quick. Probably Andy will come back to you afterwards and explore a few others. Now, your turn. I'm going to wander around a bit random here, stick a microphone at people, and I want you to give me very quickly, very shortly, one action. Starting.
My name is Mustafa from Bangladesh. I work in the coastal area. I think one of the presentation I saw that most of the presentation is science-based, that not be properly some kind of analysis. So how to demand the people that demand-oriented action to address this work, these issues, and how to people livelihood development in new sector, because the sea level rising is changed, and most of the forest is damaged because people are cutting this land. So the EBA method combine these things. Okay.
You saw more than one there. One about something about local level stuff, and then about more about livelihoods.
Yes,
Yeah. I think I'm looking at it from, I work with ICN. I'm looking at it from the angle of advocacy of these concepts and how we can appeal it.
Very nice. The whole role of advocacy, how we inform and influence whoever. Let's have another example from where? Should we start here?
I think if you talk about livelihoods and climate change vulnerability, you have to look at ecosystem services and the livelihoods, the integration and across multiple sectors. I think I very often look from only natural resource management sector, but you need to do planning and what happens in the area.
The multi-stakeholder stuff, engaging multiple groups. Anybody from here? No questions? Just action.
¿Cómo las implementa? ¿Cómo acciones ya implementadas por comunidades indígenas o campesinas pueden ser tomadas en cuenta por todas estas agencias en orden de manera de tener unos ejemplos, unas formas de analizar estos manejos y que estos sirvan para llevar pues, a unas propuestas mayores? Porque hay muchas veces buscamos la implementación y cuando hay cosas implementadas no son reconocidas de ninguna manera.
Who else around here would like to say something?
Chris Higgins from South Africa. I have to say that listening to all these presentations is really nothing new. But the action I would propose is that there needs to be a really clear framework that this thing can be presented to the scientific community, management, policy community, because the actual science of it is nothing new. It's the framework that needs to be presented.
Great, thank you. Go to the back here, somebody.
Just an action, no more. Otherwise, I'll.
This is a very new concept, and actually people will be very much adapting to it. Basic research is required on the baseline. And what will be the minimum acceptable standards where the community can go away with for the criteria and what are the indicators for that?
Okay, Thank you very much, everybody. We are just about to probably get kicked out of here. I'd like to first of all to say thank you very much to our interpreters who are back there. Well, they've done a very good job. We are going to, Angela and ourselves, we will try and synthesize some of the comments you made. There's a lot of very rich comments from both the panelists and from yourselves. I do apologize if I cut you short, but that's what a facilitator has to do, be a bit of a bully occasionally. But we will put them together. I would like to also say thank you very much to our presenters and to Angela and Bernal. And I'd like to thank you all very much for interacting so much with us all. Have a great congress, and I hope you really enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
Please don't hesitate to arrange your belongings from around the area. Thank you.
Primera parte,